The following program is a production of WMFE, Orlando, Melbourne, Daytona Beach.
The Central Florida commute is getting worse.
Orlando is one of the highest congested areas in the U.S. of A.
People are spending more time in their cars and the ride is getting more expensive. The price of gas alone more than doubled in the last 5 years.
6 weeks ago, it put me into shock overload. I couldn't handle seeing the amount that I saw.
And those who live near a bus stop are not always happy to climb aboard.
It's very inconvenient. It takes you about 2 or 3 hours to get to one destination.
Others stay behind the wheel because they have no other option.
Right now, I think the public transportation situation in Orlando is not all that good.
While plans for a commuter rail are well underway, a major legal sticking point could derail them.
You got to be kidding me. I mean, that was honestly my first reaction.
And even if a commuter rail is built, making it convenient for passengers is a whole other challenge.
It's kind of like if you build it and it works, they will come.
In part one of a two-part special report, we explore why in Central Florida transportation is at a crossroads. This week on WMFE. It's still dark outside, and Richard Burney has a long trek ahead of him. He would normally drive his car from his home in Avalon Park to work over in Orlando's Baldwin Park. Not today. At the request of WMFE, Burney agreed to try Lynx, the bus service serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. While carefully planning his route, he discovered problem number one. He has a nearly 4-mile walk just to get to the nearest bus stop.
And then I was thinking about maybe it won't be so bad if I leave early, but that's just too far.
The sun is up, and he's still walking with sweat dripping down his face. He's got to walk fast. Problem number two. If he misses his bus, he'll have to wait an hour and a half for the next one. And even if the bus is on time, his 14-mile journey will still take him over 3 hours with transfers to 3 different routes.
It's too time-consuming to take a bus. You have to plan your whole day around just taking the bus.
There were over 26 million journeys made on Lynx last year, but unlike Burney, many of the riders depend on the service and have to put up with its faults day in, day out. 3/4 of Lynx passengers are using it to get to work. In fact, most of them couldn't get there without it. A combination of Orlando's basic geography, its suburban sprawl, and the growing cost of running a car is leaving low-wage employees with no alternative. It's Lynx or nothing. And Lynx riders are hardly an influential demographic, mostly young, low-paid, and minorities. While most Orlando residents never have to ride the bus and don't care about the service, those who are stuck with it are well aware of its shortcomings.
So it's very inconvenient. It takes you about 2 or 3 hours to get to one destination. You can't get a bus when you need a bus. You can't get a bus when you get off work at like 6:30 in the evening. You can't get a bus to where you live in the city. I had to move away from where I was going to be living because I couldn't get a bus home.
And even if you're lucky enough to be near a bus route, according to the latest data from Lynx, the average trip takes an hour and 23 minutes, with wait times for buses clocking in anywhere between 1 hour and 90 minutes if they're on time. 1 in 4 buses are not, which means waiting in the baking Florida sun or heavy rain, since less than 1 in 10 bus stops have shelters. Experts like Dr. Assam Radwan of the University of Central Florida say improving Lynx is vital, not just for its present passengers, but for Orlando to keep up with other big cities.
I think we're behind because I believe that as much as we try to be innovative, trying to market public transportation here in Central Florida, it's just not happening because the way the area developed, urbanization, the sprawl, even the road system is not sufficient either. Unfortunately, you will not be able to compete with other metropolitan areas until you really have a good public transportation.
And Redwan says bringing Lynx up to standard will have a big price tag.
Anytime you put more buses on the road, you will have to have labor, drivers driving it, okay? And to make it efficient enough, the frequency of the buses has to be high. You don't want to wait there for an hour and a half. You want to be 30 minutes is a good time. So 30 minutes is doubling the number of buses, doubling the number of drivers. So there's a capital investment there.
Lynx is already heavily subsidized by local and national government. Just 18% of its $114 million annual budget comes from fares. That makes asking for extra cash even harder in the current economic climate. The catch-22 for Lynx: without improving services, it can't attract new riders to bring in more fares.
If these buses are not full, you're not going to bring in money. So it's a downward spiral type thing. You know, you keep putting money in and it doesn't bring enough money. And that's where people say, we don't want to bail out that system. It's taking too much money.
And Lynx is in trouble just maintaining current services. Route cuts are on the table because the agency is still nearly $2 million in the red. Now this worries Lynx rider Ryan Whittemore. He used the bus every day for a decade and fears his route will be cut.
It's going to impact me a lot, especially if they cut this bus, because this is the only bus I have to get from home to work.
Local counties and cities are not rushing to bail out Lynx. Radwin says that reflects the common public opinion of the bus system.
We know that it's not profitable. We know that somebody has to subsidize it. So anytime it goes on a referendum or anybody has to vote on it to support it, people say, no, we don't want to support it because it's going to be a lost case. Something drastic has to happen to change the attitude about public transportation and about land use development. And it has to be a major commitment from the top and filters down. And it hasn't happened yet, unfortunately.
Back in Baldwin Park, it's 9:15, and after a 4-mile walk and changing buses 3 times, Richard Burney has finally arrived at work. A journey that normally takes just half an hour in the car has taken him over 3 hours, and he isn't finished yet. He has to clean up and change his sweat-drenched shirt. No prizes for guessing whether taking the bus will become part of his daily routine.
I would not do this on a daily basis, not at all.